Did the New York Giants just send a message to Tyrone Tracy by bringing in Najee Harris, a running back who has a lot of production throughout his career? We're going to dig into that today. Before we continue on, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future Giants content this season. Hit the like button on this video and comment below if you think that Najee Harris will make this team or if Tyrone Tracy will end up sticking on the final roster. The big talking point coming out of the first Giants preseason game was the poor performance by Tyrone Tracy. And a lot of people started speculating, is this going to lead to maybe him getting pushed out and not making the final roster? We're not going to jump to that just yet. I want to first talk about the news of signing Najee Harris because certainly a big recognizable name considering the production that he had at the very beginning of his career. He's signing on a one-year deal per Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. Last season, it was cut short. He only played 3 games, didn't really get a ton of touches in those 3 games, but he had a torn Achilles, which is obviously significant. 28-year-old running back coming off of an Achilles tear kind of paints the potential picture where he just doesn't really have it. He doesn't have the gear necessary to be a contributing running back in the NFL. At the same time, at 6'1", 245, he wasn't exactly a burner in the first place. So it might not really have much of an impact on his play style because the way that Najee Harris won was through physicality, it was through patience, it was through grinding out short yards, which is something the Giants are going to want with the identity shift to being a run-first team. As I mentioned, he had 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 34 total touchdowns when he was with the Steelers, and it kind of seemed like there was a possibility that he could be a big play threat, or not a big play threat, an impactful player for the Chargers when he signed. They ended up drafting Amari and Hampton, and kind of was the rest was history there, that Hampton is now the future of that team. Same thing happened for why he got pushed out with the Steelers, is that while he has reliability and success, it's not enough to warrant him earning a gigantic contract and a featured role with a team like he previously had when he was picked in the first round out of Alabama not that long ago. Last year was obviously brutal, but he did have before that 2 of his better seasons averaging over 4 yards per carry with the Steelers. So again, this is a guy who hasn't been terrible. He hasn't exactly been a superstar, but he has had reliability as a big bruising back and can be that for the Giants if the Achilles stuff isn't a major issue. Suffered in September, so who knows what that recovery has looked like and how he currently feels, what he can do pushing off. But I think that the timing of this is pretty telling. I don't think that there's really even any reading into this happening with this discussion. The big focal point after the Vikings game was that Tyrone Tracy missed that block, which was a huge, huge mistake that allowed for Jackson Dart to get blown up. He's lucky that Jackson Dart didn't sustain a major injury, but that is an absolute no-no. When you are on the field, you need to be paying close attention if you are in a pickup situation. If you are picking up a blitzer, you can't allow for your attention to be diverted, which he made that excuse, and then allow a free straight line. If he had at least made contact with Jay Ward, I think the conversation is a little bit different, but I think that because he just completely let him run past him, it makes it all the more worse because it's one thing to not show effort, but to make a blatant mistake like that shows that you're just not prepared to make an impact in a game in critical moments. How can you trust him when he did that in a preseason game within this new offense? He also, which makes this even worse, if Tyrone Tracy being as elusive and as explosive as he is, if he had ripped off a long run and not even like anything ridiculous, like a 10-yard gain, if he had looked like Skattebo, who made a couple guys miss, who put his head down and picked up some yards, Tracy didn't get very many of those opportunities, but he had one bad run for no gain, and then he had another run for 5 yards, 2 carries for 5 yards, but just generally did not look comfortable out there, looked lost. It just didn't feel like it was a strong performance for him that is going to help his case for sticking with this team. I don't think that this is like a true, clear indictment that he ends up getting cut. I don't think that's what this is. But it feels as though bringing in Najee Harris establishes that they needed an excuse to have another running back brought in during the remainder of camp. They want to run the ball. They want to focus on running the ball. They ran the ball at will during this first preseason game. They didn't throw the ball that often. It was very clear that that was going to be the new identity. It's been talked about the entirety of training camp that they've been running the ball this much. They've been under center a lot. There's been multiple tight end sets quite frequently. I think that with the current running back room, they did not really have the body types that maybe they were looking for in order to have this new philosophy. I think Skattebo is trending towards becoming the clear-cut number one guy instead of a shared touches type of a situation with Tracy. I think that he already showed, coming off of an injury, that he is capable of being the lead back in this offense. But at 5'9", 215, he's the biggest guy that you have. He runs really physically, but that is the biggest guy that you have. Tyrone Tracy is 5'11", 210, and Devin Singletary is 5'9" as well. He's very small. They don't have, with all Tracy and Skattebo having injury histories, they don't really have like that big, huge frame dude that if they need to just bring him in to quickly spell whoever the starter ends up being, whoever's getting the primary share of carries, they don't really have that. And that was why, like, I even had discussed this on other piece of content that I've done on other platforms that, hey, it would make a lot of sense if the Giants went and got Naji Harris. It almost made too much sense. And when this signing happened, I kind of was stunned how correct I was, because it fits to that issue where you've got two running backs with injuries in the past year, and you have a lack of size in your running back room, and you want to have that established physical identity. It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, I think, for Harris to make this team. I don't think it's a guarantee. I always thought that if they brought Harris in, it would be him boxing out Devin Singletary, but Devin Singletary made a really good play on that screen. I kind of wonder if like that shapes the possibility for him sticking. Is this a team that I would actually highly doubt that they would carry four running backs because they've got Ricard, so not even going to put that on the table here. Is it Singletary? Is it Tracy? Who gets pushed out in favor of Harris sticking? Now, I did ask Rob Gregson, who does our Steelers work over at A to Z Sports, and I asked him, I'm like, is Naji Harris a good pass blocker? And this is the one thing that might kind of work against Harris. He apparently, with the Steelers, they would bring Warren onto the field whenever they were in like clear third down situations because they didn't trust him as much as a pass blocker. So I don't know if anything's changed, if he's gotten better. That seems like that could be a contributing factor here, that he's not necessarily just coming in because he's the better pass blocker. Maybe that makes it too hard for him to make the team. Maybe the inverse of that is they don't really care. They just want the size. They want his physical profile. I'm curious to see what happens here with Naji Harris. Obviously a recognizable name, and the new identity for the Giants is going to define their season and their success. Again, comment below if you think he's going to make this final 53-man roster. Hit the like button on this video. We'll talk to you later.